welcome.
Okay, so N+1 is a zine that I made. N+1 is also a rule written by the Velominati. Vélo meaning bicycle en français. There are 95 rules. The rules are known by the people who race bikes. The rules are 100% serious. The rules are 100% a joke about how we are 100% serious. They include, for example, guidance on the relative worth of your bicycles. Rule number 25, the bikes on top of your car should be worth more than the car. They include guidance on the way that you ride your bike. Never get out of the big ring. If it gets harder, push harder. Guidance on your general attitude. Harden the fuck up. If it's raining, and you've been on the mountain for 15 minutes already, and there are at least 45 more minutes of, because you're in the big ring, slogging away, the answer, if you want to complain, is harden the fuck up. Also abbreviated in online forums to HT, someone help me. Thank you. That's a joke. And the ultimate rule is N+1. The correct number of bikes is governed by a careful formula. You can read it, and I don't want to ruin my mic technique by turning around and trying to read it to you, but there's a great sub-joke there about N+1 being the number of bikes that you should own, except if that number would mean your partner leaving you. So this talk is 100% a joke about how I am 100% serious about the design of bicycles in video games. It is a case study of 5 bicycles that I bitched about to my housemate as I watched him play them in video games. So this is the bike that started it all. It began with the end of the world. The Chinese Rooms 2015, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which is a perfect and lovely game ruined by precisely 2 things. Number 1, now this is more of an English thing, they hired the entire cast of The Archers to play the characters in it. The Archers is like the longest running soap opera in the world. It's a radio soap opera where everyone has to greet one another by their name because you can't see them. So they're like, oh, hello, David, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm all right, Ruth, thank you. And it genuinely ruins the game. The second thing they did that ruined the game, in a world where you have modeled like 50 kinds of teacup and nearly fired someone because they put the wrong kind of hay bale in for that era, why on earth would you model only one kind of bicycle? This is literally my main problem with the game. It is the 80s. So many people would have ridden bikes. There would have been kids on bikes, postmen, old ladies, commuters, families, and also it's a super weird shape. It's kind of like a Dutch bike, but with this weird handlebar setup and a super slack chain that someone should take some links out of. It makes sense that it's steel, but honestly, only one type? 1 out of 10. Some of you might recognize here GTA San Andreas. So when I was 30 years old, I did an Ironman triathlon for fun or whatever, and naturally, when my housemate said to me, I've signed up for triathlon, I looked up in an excitement and was disappointed to find out that it was just a great joke about the fact that he was doing one of what is the best side quest of GTA San Andreas, where you try and complete a triathlon on a BMX. And I'll give you authenticity on some levels. If you're going to boost a bike in 90s California, you're definitely going to want a sweet, non-branded BMX-alike with pegs on the back for your pal to stand on as you cruise down the street. And on the other hand, though, it has no gears. And this triathlon you do in the game is like up an actual hill. You can't fit tri-bars to a BMX. Bad bike. 3 out of 10. Okay, life is strange. By the time I came across this bike, I began to think that the people who work in games now are exactly the kind of people who wanted a BMX in the 80s. Because it's obvious they never got one. They got some roller skates or something. When they model a bike in a game, therefore, what they model is this 1980s BMX, that dream bike they never got. This is the only reason I can think of that this Life is Strange generic contemporary setting would have such an 80s bike. Maybe it's a retro thing, but you're much more likely to find young, hipster kids in America riding old steel racers with drop handlebars. What marks it out decisively as a dream bike is that fade. Sweet. 4.5 out of 10. My favorite Yakuza 0 side quests are: number 1, beat a child at a vintage Sega arcade game called Outrun, which I find far more compelling than actual Yakuza 0. 2, make the hostesses as best as you can to keep your male guests happy, because my housemate lets me dictate their hair and makeup. Now, I know this is terrible gender politics, but that's why they stick around. They're kind of fun sometimes. The worst side quests are when you have to repeatedly beat people to death with whatever's around you, and sometimes that's a bike, and sometimes the bike gets broken, and that's sad. The bikes are pretty on point for their location and setting. In Japanese slang, these are known as mommy bikes. In the UK, you'd call them a sit-up and beg or a Dutch bike. Good, reliable steel shoppers. Same model, different colors. Are you listening, everybody's gone to the Rapture? Different colors. It's not that different approach to the Rapture one, but colors. And also, Yakuza 0 does not sell itself on its verisimilitude, so 6 out of 10. Digital Bird Playground is one of the best games which, at time of speaking, has never been released. In Digital Bird Playground, you play as a duck with perfectly animated legs who is in a playground, and there are playground things to play with. One of the things that you can play with is a bike which seems to be able to track stand of its own accord. So this is definitely a fixed gear bike or a bike with a back pedal brake, because when the duck pedals backwards, the bike slows down. I'm more inclined to call it a fixie because, come on, this is a very hipster-looking duck, right? Out of the 5 examples, this is the only bike which captures any of the joy of cycling. 9 out of 10. In conclusion, hire me to be a consultant on the bikes in your video game, and if in doubt, N+1, add more bikes.